Hello, algebra class, and welcome to this video on section 7.6, solving quadratic equations, part 2, where we're looking at equations that have a leading coefficient that's larger than 1. So we've factored these, and now we're going to take the next step, which is solving them. And we'll see some other applications of this too. Okay, so in this equation, we're told that 10x squared plus 32x is equal to 7 minus 5x squared. And just like we have in the past, our goal is to overload one side. So we're going to overload the left side here and set everything equal to 0. So that means I'm going to add 5x squared and subtract 7 from both sides. And the reason why I want to put it on the left is so that I have a positive leading coefficient. My positive coefficient is going to be 15 for the 15x squared. So 15x squared plus 32x minus 7 is equal to 0. And now I'm going to look to factor that trinomial. Now, I know, Mr. Schmanoli likes to split the middle term, and I'm a big fan of guess and check. If I tried to split the middle term, I would multiply 15 and negative 7, which would be negative 105. And there are just a lot of factors of negative 105. And as I said, I'm just a bigger fan of guessing and checking. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to use my tips. So the first thing I'll do is look for a GCF, and 7 is prime, and 32 is made up of nothing but 2's. 15 is made up of a 3 and a 5. There is nothing in common with any of these terms other than 1. So that's out. The second thing is, if I'm going to guess at how the 15x squared breaks down, I'm going to start with 5x and 3x. And because those are closer together than 15x and 1. It very well might be 15x and 1, but I'm going to start my first guess to be 5x and 3x. And luckily, 7 can only be broken down one way, a 7 and a 1. So, okay, let's try that. A minus 7 and a plus 1. And let's check our outer and inner terms. I know the first and last work. We forced them to work. So now let's check the outer and inner. The outer is plus 5, and the inner is minus 21. That's a minus 16. That's no good. Okay, so let's try, instead of a minus 7 and a plus 1, let's try a minus 1 and a plus 7. Let's see if this works. And again, we'll check my outer. Plus 35, that's looking good. Minus 3x, yay, that's it. That's perfect. That's plus 32x. Okay, so I have my trinomial factored, and so I can set the two factors equal to 0. Either 5x minus 1 is 0, or 3x plus 7 is equal to 0. If 5x minus 1 is 0, then x is 1/5. That's one solution. If 3x plus 7 is equal to 0, then x is negative 7/3, and that's my other solution. Okay, let's try the next one. Find the area of the rectangle find the perimeter of the rectangle if the area is 51. Okay, so obviously to find the area, I'm going to multiply the two dimensions together, and we're going to set them equal to 51. Now, there is a shortcut. If you know numbers that multiply together to get 51, there aren't too many of them. You can try to figure out what the two dimensions are going to be based on the fact that there are a very limited number of combinations of integers that multiply to be 51, and you can find the x that works in that case. And I won't penalize shortcuts. But let's say this number wasn't as easy to figure out as 51. And there are a lot more ways of multiplying things together to get whatever the area is. This is how you would solve it. So I'm going to say that the length, 2x plus 1, times the width, x minus 5, is equal to the area of 51. Now, I'm going to get two solutions for x in this algebraic equation. They both might work back in the original context of the question. This is a geometry question that we're using algebra to solve. So always keep in mind what the question is looking for. The question is looking for perimeter. So I have to plug in my answers for x anyway. But even if I didn't, even if it said just solve for x, make sure that the answers that you plug back in, or the answers that you found, work by plugging them back in, and we don't get any negative side lengths. Okay, so I have to FOIL this. I'm going to get 2x squared minus 10x plus x minus 5 is equal to 51. And now I'm going to combine outer and inner and overload all in one step. So I get 2x squared minus 9x minus 56 is equal to 0. All right, so we'll assume this factors We're going to do some guess and check. 2x squared, that's nice. It's only 2x and x. And again, if I have to check, if I have to guess the way 56 is going to be broken down, I'm going to guess two factors that are close together, like 7 and 8. So let's try a -7 and a +8 and see if this works. My outer and inner are all I have to check because my first and last are forced to work. My outer is plus 16x. My inner is minus 7x and plus 16x. Minus 7x is plus 9x. Oh, so close. We want minus 9x. Hey, that's actually good news. So that means all I have to do is just change the signs to make that a plus 7 and a minus 8. And now my outer and inner will have their signs changed too. So minus 16x plus 7x is a minus 9x, and that checks. Okay, good. So now I can set my two factors equal to 0. Either 2x plus 7 is 0, or x minus 8 is 0. If 2x plus 7 is 0, then x is negative 7 halves, or negative 3.5. If x minus 8 is 0, then x is 8. Okay, let's use these two answers and see if they both work. First, let's start with the one that's probably going to work, and that's x is equal to 8. If we make x equal to 8, then the width is 8 minus 5, which is 3. And the length is 2 times 8, which is 16, plus 1, which is 17. And 3 times 17, yep, that's 51. Okay, so that combination works. The question's asking for perimeter, so let's find the perimeter if x is 8. So I'm going to just come back down here for a second and find the perimeter. Okay, so if x is 8, my perimeter is going to be 2 times 3 plus 2 times 17, which is 6 plus 34, which is 40. So that's one possibility. Now let's see what happens when x is negative 3.5. If x is negative 3.5, then negative 3.5 minus 5 is negative 8.5. And I cannot have a side length that is negative 8.5. So this answer gets rejected. So my only solution to this problem is my perimeter is 40. Okay, the last question we're going to take a look at is basically asking us to do the same thing, just in a different way. Find the x-intercepts of the graph of the equation y is equal to 2x squared minus 16x plus 35. All right, I know it's been a while. The x-intercepts are the x values when y is equal to 0. All right, so we want the x values when y is equal to 0. This graph, I know some of you might know what this shape looks like. If not, this graph is going to be a U-shaped graph that looks something like this, and it's going to cut the x-axis twice. Now, where those two x-intercepts actually are, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to have one that's negative and one that's positive. I don't know until I actually solve this problem. But I know that this is going to be a U-shaped and it's going to open upwards, and we'll get into this towards the end of the year if there's time. All right, so I want to find the x values when y is equal to 0. So I'm going to set this y equal to 0. And so 0 is equal to 2x squared minus 17x plus 35. And really, as I said, this is just a different way of asking the same question that we've been solving. So I'm going to factor 2x squared minus 17x plus 35. It's good. Leading coefficient is 2, so I have a 2x and an x. And 35, how many ways are there to break that up? 7 and 5. So let's try a 7 and 5. And I know they both have to be minus because I have a positive 35 and a negative linear coefficient. So let's check it. My outer minus 10x, my inner minus 7x. Okay, that's perfect. That works. Okay. I'll also say the more you do this, the fewer guesses you're going to make because you can kind of just see how the numbers are manipulated in your head. But keep in mind, I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. And so that's why it takes me a little bit of a shorter time than it will take you. All right. So that means that 0 is either equal to 2x minus 7 or x minus 5 is equal to 0. So I'm going to get an x-intercept at 7/2 or 3.5, and I'm going to get an x-intercept at 5. So my two x-intercepts, and I'll actually write this out the correct way, are 3.5 comma 0. That's one x-intercept. And my other one is going to be at 5 comma 0.